Hi there, parents of sensitive kids. If you are wondering whether or not you should be homeschooling your kiddo because your child is struggling in school, today is the day. We are going to talk about this, and I am excited for this topic. All right, now we help parents of highly sensitive kids who are struggling with big, intense behaviors, including intensive meltdowns and regular meltdowns, right? So daily hitting, kicking, screaming, yelling, crying, any or all of the above happening at home or at school or both. And now today, and we help parents break out of the cycle in as little as 8 weeks. We've been doing this for years. Now, what I think is important for us to talk about related to today's topic, because we've got the Homeschooling Littles Summit where I'm featured talking about children who are highly sensitive and helping them be emotionally available for learning. If you're curious about homeschooling or if you're already a homeschooler and this is a factor that you want to focus on, definitely go ahead and register for that summit. It's happening now. And we'll put the link to the show notes, and you've seen me post about it or send emails about it this week as well. And today I want to speak to everybody here on our channel on a more broad topic: should you homeschool or not, or where your child is struggling related to the school setting, because it is evaluation season. It's February. Happy Valentine's Day week this week. And around this time, parents who are sending their kids to school, private, public, whether that's a more traditional setting or not, and even if you're homeschooling, you are focused on doubling down, if you will, right? Like January is over, the holidays are over, the routine has started to become more regular. And at this point, if your child is struggling with the meltdown cycle, you might be wondering if they are overloaded by what's going on in school. Now, here's the deal. Being a highly sensitive child, especially if your child does not have emotion dissipation skills, might, and parenting a highly sensitive child, I said, might lend your kiddo to struggling with managing intense, chaotic environments, like a school setting where there's multiple children, anywhere between 8 to 25 in the classroom, sometimes even 32. We've seen, especially in our area, it's pretty crowded for younger children all the way up through high school. It's pretty full where we live. And so it lends for sensitive kiddos to be overstimulated easily, especially if they are stuck in the meltdown cycle. That means that your child might not be demonstrating meltdown behavior at school, but it is absolutely affecting them, because a skill gap is a skill gap is a skill gap. Whether your child is managing their explosive behavior at school or at home differently doesn't matter. Your child has the skill gap, and that is present no matter what, no matter where they are. And so if your child is not having meltdowns at school, this conversation is still relevant to you. It's really important to understand that when your child is struggling with managing the environment, you might notice that happens if the household becomes chaotic, right? So if the household is busy and you got to go somewhere and everything is, routine, but also rushed, and your child is melting down in that dynamic and you only see it at home, it's really important that you highlight that your child is likely demonstrating a skill gap, but choosing subconsciously to keep it together out of fear in the school setting. All right. So I'm not going to go into that today because I have all kinds of trainings over the years related to, my child's not melting down at school. Does, only melts down at home. Is that a good thing? Right. We can absolutely send you in the right direction. If you need that support, go ahead and comment below, or if this is the podcast, go ahead and send us an email. We'll point you in the right direction because we put shows out on that topic. Today's show is specifically for parents who are considering homeschooling or who are already homeschooling, and I want to speak a little bit about that concept. If your child is struggling in the school setting, it is your job to be the advocate for your kid. Whether your child is highly sensitive or not, we teach our clients, like obviously we only work with parents with sensitive kids, and we teach our parents that you are an equal member of your child's educational team. And obviously, that means that you need to educate yourself on how and when your child is being educated, what your child's being educated about, and what skills the teacher is using to help your child gain an education. Now, this is really critical because there are key pieces that, for example, the public education system and even private education system, they are obligated to meet for your child. And if you need help with that, we talk about emotional availability for learning on the summit that's running this week. And the summit's free, so feel free to go register for it if this is relevant for you. It is for parents of children, sensitive children, 7 and under specifically. However, I'm sure you can glean something from it if you're definitely from my conversation with the summit leader in that conversation. That's relevant for parents of any age. So you can definitely go ahead and dive in. And I'll probably, once the recording is out and published, I'll be able to put it up for the show later on in the next several weeks or something like that. However, it's running now, so feel free to go register. All right. Now, back to what we're talking about today. If your child is struggling in the school setting, you might be wondering if you should just change the setting, right? And I want to highlight that wherever you go, there you are. So your that rule applies to your child, that rule applies to you. This is a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. But what's really important to understand is that, as I mentioned before, a skill gap is a skill gap is a skill gap is a skill gap. If your child doesn't feel capable in managing their emotional intensity, and they are easily overstimulated, and that is a combination for their skill gaps, then your child will not be able to maintain themselves when settings become overwhelming and the demand is placed on them to complete a task that is necessary for their growth and development, including education, right? Any academic task. And so it is really important to choose to educate yourself and to train yourself on the understanding of how children learn, as well as what your child's capacity is for learning at this stage. Because if you're going to change the environment, if you deem that the child is not being treated fairly, your child's not being cared for effectively, or there's a better setting and you're focusing on raising the bar for how your child is educated and what professionals you hire to do that, and moving into any sort of alternative private setting or teaching them yourselves, then it is important to notice that your skill set at evaluating teachers and evaluating those who are on your child's education team is a skill set that you need to own, right? Now, here's the deal. If myself included, those of you who were parented in an era where public school was more prevalent, more the run of the mill, maybe you were educated in a public school setting, you were likely trained to trust your teachers and trained to follow authority, right? No matter what. And in today's day and age, the school systems are much more focused on teaching to tests, and they're much more focused on bureaucratic objectives rather than the one-to-one focus for the children. Schools are generally overcrowded, and the teachers are doing the very best that they can. And it's also true that there are some gaps. So it is up to us as parents to educate ourselves to understand, what are we deferring to, right? Are we deferring to the teacher's complete and effective authority, even if they're understaffed and undersupported? Who are we helping in that dynamic, right? Is your child the side effect of the environment? And so as a parent, it is your duty and it is your job to ensure that you have full and complete understanding of how your child learns and full and complete understanding of how your child is being taught in a classroom, no matter what setting you have, all right? As you educate yourself on that fact and on these skills, then it will be much easier for you to determine whether or not your child should be pulled from that school setting. So when we encourage our parents, because I'm a homeschooler, but I know that that is not it's not an option. It's not an opportunity for everybody. It's not necessarily something that everybody can maintain. And it's also true that I work very, very hard in order to have supports and delegate some of my child's homeschooling. So it is possible for everybody. I never put anybody in a position to believe that they can't homeschool if they don't want to, because it is absolutely possible. It might require some shifts that would take some time. Might not be something you can achieve right this minute. However, you should definitely educate yourself in order to determine if it's going to be a good fit for your child and for your family in the near future, if that's something that you want to do, so that you're not reactive in any way, right? Because the meltdown cycle and lends you to be reactive in different ways. In parenting, you might be trying to use gentle parenting skills and tactics to change your child's behavior. And yet at the end of the day, when your child is not managing their behavior effectively, you might end up yelling against your intuition. And when you're at the end of your rope, right? Now, is yelling part of a gentle parenting or attachment-focused parenting plan? No, you and I both know that. We know that you're doing that when you're not at your best. So, and you're missing some skills yourself, right? So there's some changes here, skills directly towards your child to help your child move on from something that's bothering them faster, so that your patience isn't, taken to the end of its rope, and also for you to dissipate your emotion and notice that your child's emotions aren't, can't be your emotions can't be contingent upon your child's emotional calm, right? Which obviously you're trying. You wouldn't be listening to our show if you are, if this was just completely out of your intellectual sphere of understanding, right? So make sure that we're highlighting a few pieces that are necessary for you as a parent. Since you'll be hearing from me as you register for that homeschools training as well, I'm going to keep today's podcast short so that you have the opportunity to focus on that and get registered, all right? So again, the focus is in noticing that you're an equal player on your child's educational team. When we help our clients achieve that objective, schools start to defer to the parent. Because when you can influence people from a place of empowerment, a mental state of empowerment, and intellectual understanding, people listen, right? Otherwise, you'll be reactive, and teachers or the educational team will believe that they know more about child development than you do, and they might know more about how to manage a classroom of 25 and how to ensure that a classroom of that size gets the job done on a day-to-day basis. They might be working really hard at that. That might be a skill set you don't have. However, as your child's parent, it is absolutely in your purview to have the skill set to understand how your child learns. You can build that skill. And that is something that I believe firmly, and my team believes firmly, that it is your responsibility as a parent, right? It's much more empowering to understand your child and how they learn and their learning styles, as well as what contributes to their overwhelm and what keeps them from learning. In order to advocate, because there are certain systems you could be putting in place in the school setting that you already have. And a lot of that happens in the home setting, right? Now, remember, highly sensitive children change through their relationship with their parents. So we've had lots of parents who have considered homeschooling their kids and yet decided at the end of the day that wasn't what they wanted to do. And we don't preach either is necessary. Unless a child is being mistreated in the school, my team, we don't guide a parent towards one or the other, or a different scenario. Instead, what we do is we help parents decide what's right for them by educating themselves in that process. And every situation, every school, we work with parents around the country and around the world as well. So every school system is different. Every teacher is different. Every, bureaucracy or not is different. And the values that parents need to meet are multifaceted, right? You can't just think about the one classroom this year and determine whether or not it's a good fit to pull your kid out, right? You got to be thinking into the future. And if you're really overwhelmed in the meltdown cycle, that can be really difficult to think ahead 3-6 months from now. I was just speaking to a parent this week who jumped into into boot camp, and she said, you know what? Like, my kiddo is 7, and I thought we'd be grown out of this behavior by now, and I don't know. I haven't even thought about what it would be like to focus on the next couple of years. Because I've been so focused on the day to day that it's just, I'm swimming and I'm trying to keep my head above water. And that is absolutely part of the equation. And when you have that breakthrough, that's really what's going on, because we create that breakthrough for everybody who gets on a breakthrough call for us of, how you're focusing on the problem and how you can see the bigger picture that's necessary to do, whether you work with us or not, right? And that conversation happens on a breakthrough call with my team. Then you get to decide, is there more that you want to focus on? Do you have skills to be able to zoom out and look at the bigger picture with a more neutral and capable manner? And is that a skill gap that you want to fill for yourself, right? Because as adults, we have opportunities to decide what education do we need in order to learn how our child should be educated. And that's a choice you have. Absolutely. So let's figure this out, okay? I want to talk about and just highlight what we covered. Like I said, this training is going to be short. So what we talked about is the identity that you need, right? The opportunity to be your child's advocate, which requires certain education. The capacity for you to evaluate your child's learning style, and the capacity to understand how your child learns, and that is through you, right? So we've had parents who have considered changing their child's school, and instead they focused on what really works to eliminate the meltdown cycle in their home, and they didn't need to change the child's school. The child changed how they demonstrated skillfulness in the school setting, and as a result, the child was much more resilient in the current school setting they had. So they didn't even need to share with the school that the child was struggling at home, and the child was originally overwhelmed by, all the noise and everything going on in the school setting that could be overstimulating, right? Because the child was able to decrease the emotional intensity that they were feeling because they were taking on more than they needed to. And that's an emotional self-concept, an emotional boundary process. And children learn emotional boundaries through their parents. They don't learn that through a teacher or a therapist, especially not highly sensitive kids. It becomes an intellectual conversation because these children demonstrate wise intellect usually. However, clear and specific boundaries need to be taught and social skills need to be taught through parents for sensitive kiddos. Otherwise, it stays in the intellect and the illogical part of the brain, and highly sensitive children, as all children are emotional led, not intellect led. So no matter how smart your kiddo is, that is true. And so it's very important for you to be focused on that and to highlight that. So again, go ahead and register for the Homeschool Summit that's going on this week. And we've got the link going on to in the show notes here. And it's long, so I'm not going to recite it today on the show. We'll put it on the video, and we'll put it in the show notes for you. All right. And we look forward to serving you in the summit. All right. Talk soon. Bye.